Good evening, everybody, and welcome to State of the Federation. This is going to be episode 7, and we got some Wave 6 card tricks for you and collective OP1. I'm your host, Delta Angelfire, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to State of the Federation. And it's a kind of a welcome back to State of the Federation because it's been off for quite a while, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But, just to start with, today we're going to be doing a couple, just some card tricks, some of the most recent stuff that's come up that we haven't been able to cover yet. And since OP1 is going on right now, doing some, just some strategy for what to expect, what you think you can do, and all that kind of good stuff. So, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, save that for later. So, we have, to start with, I was just going to go over some of the cool things you can do with some of the newest cards that came out in Wave 6, a little bit of Wave 5, and then some. The first thing I wanted to start out with is Auxiliary Control. The Auxiliary Control Room is one of the cards that came with the Vulcan Dekir, and this card is pretty darn cool. If you take a look at it, anytime you may disable this card to remove one auxiliary power token from beside your ship. It is a tech upgrade, and it's a Vulcan faction for 3 points. Now, what's so good about this card? I mean, obviously, you can see some of the advantages it has. Not taking an auxiliary power token. Number one, the biggest thing, you can use it after a red maneuver, and you'll still be able to take actions. This is the first time this has been available really in this game because there was no other way to get rid of auxiliary tokens other than maybe a green movement followed by a use of Martok. And that was a little hard to come by and a little bit expensive, but it was of course something you could do. In the case of Auxiliary Control Room, this card changes the dynamic. Instead of having to take a green maneuver to switch out your auxiliary power token, now you can use an action instead. Generally, it's easier to take a green maneuver than take an action, but being able to choose which way you're going to do it can have a lot of benefits. Auxiliary Control Room will work best on ships that can take a lot of extra actions. So if you say take a red action on the Enterprise D, which is already under command of Picard, normally if you had done a red maneuver, you wouldn't be able to take Picard's extra action or your normal action. So with Auxiliary Control Room, you give up your normal action to re-enable it for next time, or don't. You can even save it for a later turn, and you'll still have Picard's extra action on top of that. This can start getting a little silly if you start stacking actions. Flagships is a good shot. Dukat or not Wayun, but Dukat or Picard or Spock, who all get extra actions. If you have a ship that's taking 3 or 4 extra actions, then the Auxiliary Control Room is a lifesaver. It allows you to do maneuvers that no other ship can do and still have pretty much your full attack strength at any given point in time. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say about that one. There are some really cool combos you can pull off with it. There are some... You could go fancy with it, and since you're already spending an action to re-enable the control room, you can try to stack that with other re-enabling things. So, for example, the EMH, instead of disabling the auxiliary control room to stop a auxiliary power token, you can now disable the EMH, which counts as a crew upgrade. Well, what good is it just to disable him instead? Well, now you can also use the Doctor to re-enable the EMH as well as any other crew that might be disabled at the same time. So at one turn, you could probably re-enable Harry Kim, Tuvok, and EMH all in one turn, or Loger, and you are shooting with a secondary weapon every turn. You are clearing your power token every turn, and all it's costing you is 1 action from the Doctor. I mean, you can kind of split up these kind of half actions or delayed actions with some help from the Doctor. So I think that is a very good pair for this card. Other shenanigans you can pull with it is you can pull multiple red maneuvers in a row. And this is something that, while, I don't know, maybe not the best in theory, can be really neat. So let's say, you shoot forward with your Enterprise D all the way up to range 1, which I've done before in a couple builds. But if it's equipped with auxiliary control room, assuming you have B'Elanna Torres or some way to get a tech slot, you can do a red maneuver to back up, use the auxiliary control room to clear the power token, and then use the action to re-enable the auxiliary control room. Next turn, this lets you take another red maneuver backwards. So it's the only way to get successive red maneuvers. So normally, full reverse is a thing that only the board can do multiple times in a row. This gives a little bit of that action to, mostly the Federation ships and things like that. But, it's a trick that you can pull out of your sleeve, and with the 360 arc on the Enterprise D, you could be doing, your attacks every turn. And, if your opponent is using a not 360 arc ship as you're moving back while he's going forward, then, he'll never be pointing the right way to keep shooting at you. And, maneuverability is a great thing to have. So, I mean, that's just a couple options with this auxiliary control room, and I gotta say, I really like it a lot. I know this was Wave 5 and a little bit older, but, the more I've been able to play around with it, the more I like it. Stack actions on top of it, use it to use backup maneuvers all the way forward to your opponent's line and back to your line, and yeah, it's just a really nice card all around. Alright, with that one, next one I want to look at is this one, Ilia. Ilia came with the Enterprise Refit expansion, along with Admiral Kirk and all the other movie-themed Enterprise crew. Ilia's action is you do not lose your perform action step when you overlap another ship's base. And this is, this is another really cool kind of ability to have, which is also very similar to the auxiliary control room. Auxiliary control room keeps you from losing actions for power tokens. Ilia keeps you from losing actions from bumping. And around my area, where back when cloak used to be a big thing, we got, I don't know, we had maybe half the people would be able to use, cloaking and sensor echoing to just get in the way of other people's ships and just deny them their actions for that turn. And denying actions means, you're rolling straight up dice, and a lot of the times the dice can be cruel. With battle stations, 1 hit, 6 battle stations in the miss is going to become 7 hits, 8 if you have Bohica. If you didn't get a chance to take that battle stations, though, that's going to be 1 hit. I mean, that's a huge difference. With Ilia, whenever you bump, you still get to take your action. So action denial is no longer a strategy that the opponent can apply. But aside from just being, defensive in this kind of nature, she opens up the door to some other really neat plays. With things like cloaking, you don't no longer fear, just running right up into an enemy, trying to guess how far they're going to move. Like if you're jousting one-on-one, you can take, your one ship. It's like, well, okay, if he does a 2 forward, I'll bump with a 3 bank, but then I want to do a 2 bank instead. You don't have to worry about that with Ilia, because no matter how far your opponent moves, even if you overshoot and bump into them, then Ilia is going to still let you get your actions. You have your range 1 shots or your range 1 crew abilities like Croesus or Assimilation Tubules or something like that. And you're going to be able to do whatever you want. Ilia is great in that aspect as kind of as a little bit of a proactive card, but where she really shines is if you combine her with the Energy Dissipator. The Energy Dissipator is, of course, the 3 attack Dominion weapon. It can only shoot at range 1. So already having Ilia in the first place, getting in range 1 can be tricky sometimes without bumping, or you don't go far enough and you're out range 2 and you don't get to use it. With the Energy Dissipator, not only is it easy to approach, but you can actually pull off a kind of infinite combo with it. And it goes like this, right? You have your Energy Dissipating ship facing, your enemy. Your enemy is facing towards you. When you Energy Dissipate them, the Dissipator, not only does it drop their shields and doesn't allow them to attack this turn if they didn't already, but it also forces them to do a 1 white maneuver on their next turn. It has to be a 1 straight forward. Okay. So what happens is the ship will come straight at you, and then if you do a 1 straight forward back at it, you're going to be bumping nose to nose. Right? At nose to nose range, 1 forward will not get you through the enemy base. So every time, if you hit it again with the energy dissipator, that ship is going to be stuck there. It's going to bump you again. It's going to lose its actions, which is a very nice thing to have. But when you bump it, you don't lose yours. So if you're doing action stacking again, you can get your first action to re-enable your energy dissipator, and your second action to boost it somehow with, like, oh, Bohica. Bohica is my kind of standard go-to for dice modification. This means that if you're fighting something like either a Borg sphere or a Borg cube, the Borg cube won't lose its actions from bumping into you, but you will still be able to just keep shooting it with energy dissipator turn after turn after turn. If you have a higher skill number than the opponent, that ship is just going to just keep taking hits until you chew through all its hull or all its shields and all its hull, and then it's just going to explode because it can't do anything. If it had a higher skill than you, you have problems. But I mean, that's why you use guys like Picard or not Romulan Commander, because he takes another different action. But Khan, the Gen Con, is really good for this. And even with some of the admirals, with the new admirals that came out, you can increase someone else's skill pretty high to be able to do this as well. So the infinite energy dissipator combo is really just kind of killer against a ship that doesn't have, number one, doesn't have actions, and number two, doesn't have, as a lot of defense dice, if any at all. Because range 1 shots over and over again, it's just going to keep adding up, and that's exactly what you want. So the one that makes it possible is Ilya, being able to bump and still take your actions. There's a couple other ships that can do it too. You could try it with the Borg cube, as if the Borg cube needed anything else to do it, but it doesn't work if it hits a ship of hull value 7 or more. So like if you have Borg cube versus Borg cube, it's not going to work very well. Or you can also use the Bajoran Interceptor. And this is actually something one of the guys at our venue pulled out for OP1. A fully loaded down 90-point Bajoran Interceptor. Granted, you don't probably have to go that far, but one of the Interceptor 5's abilities is when it overlaps either an obstacle, a planet, or even another ship, it doesn't lose its action. And keeping your action when bumping is going to be the big part of using this combo. So Ilya brings this combo to everyone, but there are other ways to pull it off. Energy dissipator, bump them, re-enable the dissipator, and do it again. Repeat ad nauseum, and watch your opponent cry. Okay, don't watch your opponent cry, but make sure they know that. Maybe make sure they know about it ahead of time. It is a very nice combo, though. Moving on to one of my next favorite cards from this set. I love this guy from the Soong. I liked him back in the old Decipher CCG too, but this is Croesus. I don't even remember what he did in the old CCG, but here he is a magnificent creature. So one of the best ways to avoid certain shenanigans, like like we were just talking about, Infinite Energy Dissipator, or Weyoun and Varel, Weyoun Conditional Surrender, things that really just break a build if you don't have some way to at least deal with it once or twice or more than that. Croesus is about kind of like the poor man's assimilation tubules. Unlike the who is it, Toman Thorax? I'm not sure. They're one of the first Jem'Hadar had a very similar ability, and it was at range 1 you can discard him to discard a crew on an enemy ship, in range 1. And this was alright. It was the standard crew ganker, but no one used crew that much. And the problem was he was a discard. And the discard is susceptible to, prevention by Weyoun or any of the other guys that, help prevent, not that anyone uses them, like the 3-skill Major Kira, or the, what was his name? Stex. Stex was also a pretty neat one. But those guys could stop them cold in their tracks if an opponent really needed to hold on to their crew that badly. Croesus, along with assimilation tubules, which has been a good go-to for me in the past, bypasses all of that because he steals. Stealing is not discarding. It's not even disabling. So Shroud doesn't help it. Weiyun doesn't help it. You get it, and your opponent doesn't have it anymore. And if they had big plans for that, they are just stopped cold. So Croesus, discard this card to target a ship at range 1. Disable 1 crew or tech upgrade of your choice on the target ship. Then steal 1 crew upgrade, excuse me, of your choice from that ship, even if the upgrade exceeds your ship's restrictions. If this upgrade is deployed to a ship with a board captain, you must spend 2 drones to perform the action, yada yada. You're not going to use this with a board captain anyway. The big thing is that he is also dual faction Borg independent, and I'm a huge fan of independent factions. And this gives pretty much anybody the chance to, break some of these big combos. You can use him to steal Ilya, you can use him to steal Varel, you can use him to steal Lenalis. And there's nothing really they can do about it except try to, run away as fast as they can and get out of range 1. Let's see, special rulings about him. You do have to do his steps in order, but if you cannot do them, you don't have to. So disable 1 crew or tech upgrade of your choice on the target ship. You can do that even if the only thing he has on the ship is a tech upgrade. So you can disable the tech upgrade even if there's no crew for you to steal. Stealing 1 crew upgrade, if he only has 1 crew upgrade and nothing else, you would have to disable that crew upgrade before stealing it. And it's a minor drawback, but I mean usually not too big of a problem. As long as you're getting rid of that card, it's usually more for the offensive benefit of him not having it than the defensive benefit of you now getting to use it. Granted, there are cool things you can do with this, but we can leave that for another time. So Croesus, my new go-to pick for combo breaking. Not quite as versatile as assimilation tubules, but he can usually get the job done. Alright, after Croesus, we're going to move on to another Rogue Borg. And this guy I like a lot. This is Goval. He looks kind of silly. He's only 1 point, but he does amazing things for 1 point. Discard this card at any time to prevent one of your other crew upgrades from being disabled or discarded. And again, if you use it on a board captain, it discards tokens. But again, you don't really care if this is a Borg. But Borg and independent dual faction for 1 point. Before this, the only 1 point crew or upgrades we even had were just the crew gankers. I don't even remember half their names now. Clag, Bakra, Param. Those were the only ways you could spend a single point. We got the weapon with the Vulcan ship, but that didn't really help so much. Here you have an independent 1 point crew, just like Follower of Khan. But his ability not only stops the other 1 point crews from working, you can combine him with anybody that has a discard effect and prevent them from being discarded. So if you want to get a second use out of McCoy, or a second use out of Croesus, or a second use out of pretty much anybody, Varel even. This is what Centurion should have been. Romulans have to pay 4 points to get this. And this is a 1 point independent upgrade where it'll probably still cost 1 point if you're especially if you're using, one of the independent flagships, which are very popular. He is a great way to fill out a build. If you have that 1 extra point, he can always come in handy, and he basically doubles any of your other crew that discard, which can be easily up to 3, 4, 5, 11 points. A second 11-point upgrade for 1 point. This is pretty crazy when you put it into that perspective. But yes, Goval. Another number 1 crew choice for you guys from Wave 6. He came in the Sung as well along with Croesus. Alright. Last thing I'm going to talk about for some of the card combos and stuff is I'm going to talk about the Admirals. And we're just going to look at Mr. Kirk here, Admiral Kirk for this one. Admirals have changed the game just a little bit. There haven't been many used as of yet, but it offers a lot of customization options. By having an Admiral, You are now no longer required to use your resource to give any captain a talent. So James T. Kirk, he has his own talent, but whoever he's with gets to use it. Enables things like Weiyun conditional surrender without the need for a flagship. So you could have Weiyun conditional surrender plus fighters, or you could do I don't even know. There's a lot. There's a lot of different choices that you can make here, but really the big one is that the combos where captains couldn't use talents before, all of those are now open. Toreth can now take, well, she already took one, but now she can take Massacre and Cheat Death, or something like that. The second benefit of this is going to be the additional captain skill. All admirals add to their captain skill. So with Kirk adding +2 to a captain, you can enable other kinds of neat things. So add an admiral on to Martok 8. Martok gives an extra action to any captain whose skill is less than his. So Kirk raises Martok's skill to 10, which means now you can grant an extra action to Picard. So now not only are you getting your normal action and your Picard, which has to be battle stations, scan, evade, etc. You can now get a second normal action with him as well. So you could go Picard for battle stations with Bohica on there for bonus backup. Also activate Sulu for the ship's normal action. Also activate Scotty for his bonus attack dice. You're getting this is something I came close to pulling off back in OP3, back when we still had Admiral's orders, and this was shooting 9 dice every turn at range 1, and it was just devastating because it wasn't like it was even hard to hit, easy to hit. It still had 3 or 4 defense dice on top of that. So these kinds of things help open up more options. You can now have Martok give Khan skill 8 an extra action, and Khan works a lot better when you can take both a battle stations and something to evade with him, or a battle stations and something that lets him roll more attack dice. The last thing I'm going to go over, specific to James T. Kirk, is the fleet action. The fleet action can be performed by any of your ships within range 1 to 3, and Kirk's action is a great one. Target a ship at range 1. Disable 1 upgrade of your choice on the target ship. So this now, wherever Kirk is, his ship can do it, or if he's on your main fighter, one of your support ships can now move in and disable, whatever is causing you trouble, whether it be the Weiyun Varel combo, whether it be, cheat death. You get up there, you disable that, and it's no longer a problem for this turn when, if you destroy him, if you're already looking at destroying him this turn, it's kind of like it's saving you an attack for later. Cheat death is a very annoying one. All kinds of things. Any one upgrade, disable assimilation tubules. The Borg player is going to have a heck of a time re-enabling it and then using it again. Oh, I'm dropping frames. Still there? Hello? Alright, looks like we're back. Everyone still hear me? Cool. But yeah, what I was going over was just, disabling upgrades that are giving you a problem. You don't have to use them every turn, but it's giving you another option for all of your other ships, and you only have to have one of him. Normally you would have to have, a disable. You have to put a disabler on a ship to guarantee that was going to work. Miles O'Brien on like an Apnex or something, just so you could guarantee that one shot. And if it got blown up, then you don't have him anymore. James T. Kirk makes sure that you have it, wherever you need it, whenever you need it, and that is, that's a very useful thing. Federation 5 points lets you get another upgrade, covers your need for spot removal, specific debuffs that could ruin your day, and all around he's a really great deal. Even if you put him on an off-faction ship, which makes him cost 8 points instead of 5, it's still not a bad deal. That's still about as expensive as assimilation tubules and can fill a very similar role. And yeah, Admiral's orders pretty great. I like James T. Kirk a lot more than Ducat because Ducat's action is not really as good. But the same thing applies. You know, free talent for somebody, not really a free talent, but an extra talent, an increase in captain skill, and that's all just really magnificent. All right, moving on. That's all I wanted to talk about for some individual card combos for today. We went over Auxiliary Control Room, Ilya, Croesus, Goval, Admirals, and there are so many more, but the next thing I wanted to touch on is going to be OP1, the Borg Cube, what is it? First Contact scenario, I believe it's called. And this one's a bit of a troublemaker. So, just gonna switch out a little bit. I don't like that. Let me go back to my other camera. So, as we are still here, sitting in space, we have OP1. OP1 is, you know, a big strategy for, what do I want to say? You have the large cube in the middle, and every turn it's going to move vaguely towards other ships. And if you're close enough to it, it's going to try to just assimilate what you have. And if you don't have anything to assimilate, it's going to just, you know, outright start shooting you. We've had our event for this at my local shop just, you know, a couple days ago. I have another one tomorrow, and there'll be a third one, you know, a couple weeks from now. But after practicing a couple things, the working strategy so far is, you know, just a couple points. So there's the resistance action, which any of your ships can take, which will, you know, basically let you choose which of your upgrades gets assimilated. If you roll a crit, you don't get assimilated at all, but I mean, really, an action for a 1 in 8 chance of that happening is usually, you know, not going to happen for the same reason that, you know, Warp Core Breach doesn't change every game that it appears in. Just trying to roll that crit is usually not going to happen, and you can't count on it. So, things to know about it. With the rulings we finally got on the Board Game Geek FAQ, the Borg tokens assimilation, as opposed to regular Borg, which steal things with their assimilation, the Borg cube discards things. This means a couple things. Number one is that you can protect it with someone like Weyoun. You know, Weyoun doesn't work against stealing, but he works against discarding. You can also use Goval, who I was just singing praises for just a minute ago. Centurion, etc. Things like that really help a lot. Number two, the discard is not counted for your surviving fleet. So if you have a couple of throwaway upgrades and you think you're going to go to time, and let me tell you, these scenarios will go to time a lot. Just figuring out the Borg's movement, figuring out the assimilations, takes a lot of downtime between turns. It doesn't seem like much at first, but instead of if you get only 7 rounds instead of 8, that can be a really big difference. Especially if you're playing, you know, some kind of chase around the board where one player's going sideways and the other player's trying to chase him and shoot him down. You know, a lot of like the same thing that happened back in Dominion War OP2 with the indestructible orbital weapons platforms. You know, you're pretty much either going to joust each other on the side of the board really quick, you know, first 2, 3, 4 rounds, try to get all your fighting done in as quick as possible, or you're going to, you know, chase each other around a little bit and hope the Borg cube does a little of your bit of your dirty work for you. So the thing is, when you go to time, if you're losing lower point upgrades, it's going to be less fleet points counted towards your opponent, and that can be useful, but in experience, the Borg assimilation was not really that big of a deal. Every ship had, you know, 2 or 3 different upgrades. If you were going straight at it, which you're going to want to do because of the bonus objective, if you go straight at it, you're usually going to kill each other long before you're worried about taking the actual shots from the Borg cube. Since the Borg cube only hits 3 ships at a time, excuse me, the fighters, which are generally a bad idea because if they're too close to the cube, they get shot automatically. If you can keep, a couple of your ships between the cube and the fighters, fighters would no longer be a bad option in this scenario. If your opponent is running 3 or 4 ships, everyone's going to be running at least 2 ships because you're going to have your blind booster and then at least 1 other ship. So even if everyone's in range of the cube, only 3 of them are going to be assimilated. And that'll be up to a little bit of luck and a little bit of positioning. If you can guarantee that one of your weaker ships is on the outside, there's a much lower chance of you having to worry about it. So the scenario in general, building for the scenario, you definitely want a couple upgrades on each of your ships. You automatically have your captain, even if it's just one of the 1 skills. But having, I would go so far as like 2 upgrades on your ships is pretty much going to be enough to guarantee that the Borg cube is not going to take you out. If you lose one of those upgrades, you can still fight unless you're trying to do something weird and crazy like a Romulan science vessel with the additional weapons array. If you lose your additional weapons array, you lose kind of all of your attacking power. So, just in general, a couple upgrades on each of your ships is going to be enough. A quick joust is really going to be what you and your opponent want because of what I said before, the bonus objective. The bonus objective states that if you are responsible for the destruction of your opponent's last ship, you get an extra battle point. Battle points are huge. Fleet points are nice. They're good tiebreakers. They're great if your venue needs, 2nd or 3rd place for prize distribution. But battle points can put a 2-1 player above a 3-0 player. We learned this back in OP4 where we were battling for that planet. Going 2-1 with 2 extra battle points gives you 7, and going 3-0 with no extra battle points gives you 6. That would put the 2nd player above, or that 1st player that I mentioned above the 2nd player, and not fun at all. You don't want to lose battle points. You definitely want to score them whenever you can. And fleet points is of course definitely secondary since they're only tiebreakers after that. So if you're looking to joust and your opponent's looking to joust, basically, what you really want to go for is, how do I make sure I'm going to be jousting better? And some really good cards for that are, it was mentioned kind of on like some of the Facebook forums, someone saw this a lot, was Borg are really good because they shoot a lot of dice, number 1, and number 2, equipping it with Cyrano Jones. Cyrano Jones works with pretty much any fleet, but he really shines in this OP because you're really encouraged to really duke it out, like even more so than the Tholian Web where you were getting closed in. Cyrano Jones encourages you to get up close and personal as quick as possible, and for the first 3 rounds you're going to have a bonus for that. And after that, well, everyone's probably dead. Getting 2 rounds of those extra hits, generally when you're using something with battle stations or target lock, those extra attack dice are going to be hits anyway. If you're using something like on the defensive, the extra defense dice, well, maybe you'll only avoid an extra 1, but that's a 3-point damage difference between you and your opponent. That's the difference between a cube and a sphere, or a sphere and the Enterprise D. 3 or 4 damage. That kind of stuff adds up, and Cyrano Jones is great for it in this scenario, especially if maybe one of your other ships doesn't get destroyed right away, or maybe you are running the fighters. When their shields go down, you just teleport one of the tribbles over there, and you've got his bonus again for 2 or 3 more turns. Now on 2 of your ships. It is magnificent. It is fun. Everyone loves tribbles. They are cute and fuzzy and great. So, see, big ships, good alpha strike, go for the joust. Even if your opponent doesn't want to joust, it's still in their best interest to joust, because if they are they're either going to, even if they win by running away, the likelihood of you going to time is really going to hurt them in the long run. 2 battle points is not going to make it against the other guys that were getting 3. Um, let's see. I learned this kind of the hard way. I was using a Wayun and Varel list. I still managed to take out 2 of the 3 fleets that I won against. I managed to take out the last ship, but you know, in the 3rd game, I got unlucky to face probably the only 2 people in the venue who were running assimilation tubules. So I just kept going back and back and back, you know, trying to stay out of range so I could keep my combo going. And really, there was a little bit more fear there than there had to be. Even if it did get like assimilated the turn after I used it, it wouldn't really have mattered so much. Just denying 1 attack in a very alpha strike heavy scenario is usually just a big enough advantage that you can afford to not have to use it again every turn. Just using it once is kind of going to be enough against anyone of the same type. All right, so how else can you prepare for this kind of scenario? Like I said, really the biggest thing you're going to see is jousts going fast. So for resources, you're probably going to see a lot of flagships. In my case, I used the reinforcement sideboard, which is also a good one. Good for breaking combos like the Wayne and Varel I was using. Or if you don't need a combo, switching it out for something more useful. I was using Mr. Spock on my sideboard, so if I didn't need Varel, I could go ahead and just switch Mr. Spock in, and then all of a sudden my damage capability goes way up. I added a dorsal weapons array on that because the 30-point blind ship, all of the 30-point blind ships are about even, but they are still almost all going to be kind of, I don't want to say crap, but they're going to be kind of crap compared to what everyone else is going to be running. All of your normal ships are definitely, you know, you already had your thought and time to put into it. The extra blind ships are going to be built just from that package, and there's some cool things in the package, but there's not the really, you know, the exceptionally good stuff in the package that you would run, you know, at another event. So what I went ahead and did, I pulled Gavroche, which was the independent Maquis Raider. Excuse me. Pulled the Gavroche. It was a great pull for me because then instead of having to use the captain on it or the talent, I used both crew upgrades and the weapon. Right. This let me use my reinforcement sideboard to throw dorsal weapons array on there, which was a far more useful weapon than the, what was it called, the focused polaron beam or phased, whatever it is that lets you try to roll more dice if you manage to roll all of your attack dice as hits in the first place. This allowed me to keep it at range 3, you know, facing away from the enemy, and still getting my shots off with my dorsal weapons array. I added the Borg Queen to the sideboard, which allowed me to either use assimilation tubules on my Borg ship or get extra actions off of the Gavroche, which came in handy because then I could use the Gavroche's action to disable 2 crew to get +2 attack dice, and I would still have battle stations or target lock, which meant my dorsal weapons array could now fire 5 shots, 5 attack dice that were going to be modified instead of just, you know, 5 dice straight or 3 dice with modification, which is what you would normally get. That helped a lot. So consider your blind ship as a good support ship. If you can either go for trying to, of course, you know, fix it up with the reinforcement board, or you can try to increase its strength with what you have in your build. You know, running Martok will help get it a second action, which will be a big, extraordinary help. Number 1, running the Independent Federation flagship, which lets you grant an extra action to someone of lower skill within range 1 after you move. That'll probably be really useful. And I know even something like Cyrano Jones, you know, you could find some way to beam it onto. It wouldn't work so well with the Klingon ship, but with like the Romulan ship, you have it decloak, leave its shields down, bam, you've got a triple on it on turn 2. You know, it works out really well, and it helps make up for the inherent weakness of the ships, because you know all of these ships have 6 or less hit points, and 6 is about the one-shot kill range for, you know, big Federation ships running Scotty or all of the Borg ships, or the Species 8472 ships, and just generally a good idea to give it more survivability. Make sure it makes more of an impact on the game than just being fodder for your opponent. Let's see, any other strategies? The running away, like I said, don't. You can try it, but I wouldn't. Like, even if you win, you're probably not getting the extra battle point. It's really to everyone's benefit to just go right at it and kill each other a lot. The bioship, or the Sung, came with the transwarp conduit, or the transwarp whatever, that lets you pick your ship off the board and place it down somewhere else at the end of the turn. That could be useful. It's good for repositioning. Another thing I found out at the tournament is it's good for use when your opponent uses projected stasis field on you. You can't attack, you lose your shields, but you still get your action, so you use that to, jump off the board, and then they can't Klingon boarding party you because, you're not there. That was an unexpected bonus I found when I was short on points and just took the conduit, had to take the conduit instead of, another hull plating. But it was a good one. And if you have that slot available, which I will probably be doing with my Sung in the near future, it definitely doesn't hurt. Jumping off I wouldn't make it a full strategy though. Loading up a bioship alpha with 4 of the quantum singularities probably won't get you very far. I mean, it definitely makes sure you don't get anything assimilated from the cube token, but every time you do it, you're missing an attack, and frankly, the cube token with its random movement, 50% of the time is not going to do anything. 66% of the time is not going to do anything. If you and your opponent are coming straight at each other and the Borg cube goes either up or down, towards you or towards your opponent, I mean, neither of you are going to be in range of it, and it's just going to kind of, chase around the edge of the board and maybe catch up to one of the forces. But, half the time it's just, back and forth between the center and somewhere else, and you guys are fighting along the edge and completely out of range. So yeah, the Borg cube token looks scary. It can have an effect. It's definitely not safe to completely ignore it, but for the most part, you shouldn't be worrying about it too much. Worry more about destroying your opponent's fleet, and if you have a couple extra points left over, then make concessions for the Borg cube token. And yeah, I believe that's all I have to say for that. Joust quick, don't be a coward and run, and heard everything. Don't worry about the cube token too much. That's pretty much what I gathered from the OP1, and that's probably what I'm going to be working with in the next tournament, which is going to be tomorrow. All right, so I mean, we've talked about a few cards. We talked about some strategy. I'll open up the. It's been a little quiet in the chat room, but I'll open it up if anyone has some questions that they want to ask before moving on. Let's see. Star Trek Attack Wing news. There's been a lot of news in the last few weeks. The Gen Con promos were announced on StarTrek.com. StarTrek.com has shown us all of the upgraded DS9 crew, including Odo, Quark, Dr. Bashir, and all of them. No word yet on how we're going to get it. If it follows the pattern of Gen Con from last year, you have to make some kind of purchase at their booth of $40 or something, and they'll also give you one. But there's no way of knowing yet. Are they going to limit it on a per customer basis? Can I go there and drop $200 on the new cloaked ship models that they're going to be selling and get 5 copies of the pack? Or is it going to be, since I'm only one person, that I can only get one because they don't want the rest of them ending up on eBay or something? But for the most part, people want to collect it. Not everyone can get to Gen Con. Some I would definitely pick up a couple extras for some of my buddies down here. If I had any extras, maybe then go on to eBay. But the promos are still seeming like it's going to be hard to get, at least from what it sounds like on all the forums. and it's given me a good reason to go to Gen Con, even though the tournaments there don't seem like they're going to be all that interesting. Um, let's see, the tournaments at Gen Con, there are going to be 12 or so tournaments. They're going to be up to 16 players. It says on the matches, you know, 3 rounds, but that from what I heard on Board Game Geek, it seems that they're going to be on a 2-foot wide by 3-foot long space. So just being shorter for just the scenario really gives an edge to like the board, because you know there's no when you set a ship down right in the center, you now can fire straight across all the way to the edges, and that is going to make a big circle, which it's all pretty hard to avoid. You can't like go corner to corner and avoid each other. If your opponent wants to shoot you, they're going to. No obstacles means there's nothing to hide behind, means it's pretty much going to be, you know, they've pretty much reduced it to, oh, you're going to joust. You have no choice in the matter. You know, no scenario, no obstacles, just, you know, roll dice until the other person's dead. And frankly, I'm kind of disappointed in that. And on the other hand, you know, if the prizes are good, why not? But I think it's seriously going to favor just straight up high attack builds with attack negation. Using, you know, Keldons with cloaking and maybe interface generator, or, you know, a bunch of Borg ships, something with Wayun and Varel. I mean, there's not going to be any fancy shenanigans here. There's not going to be any interceptor that can hide on a planet and shoot at you from wherever you are. There's not going to be, you know, the bio ship that can jump around the board, you know, get behind you every turn. So yeah, you know, there's no word yet on what the prizes are. The official listing says it's an element, and I have no idea what that actually means. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. Any other news? I have a question. All right. Hey there, Will. For the tournament is 120 build, and for next week, build 120, build a fleet, nice background. That was almost a sentence. Let's see. So Charlie, that looks like you again. We're doing the same 90-point build, so come with a 90-point fleet, and then you'll build it, and it'll be the same standard. Build a 30-point extra ship on top of that, and then you'll have a 120-point fleet. So we're using the non-mixing rules for the blind buys. You know, being able to mix them up. You know, if you get the wrong faction booster, you know, you're throwing out extra cards. You're not going to be able to build it up to 30 points. It was just a hassle, so we decided to do away with it, because it seems clear that the intent originally was you build a 30-point ship, and that's all you have to work with. All right. Let's see. Was there any more news? Wave 7, of course, we knew a few months ago was going to be delayed, so there's not going to be a wave in August, I believe. There will be one in September, and I think that's the one that's carrying the NX-01, which I'm sure a lot of people were waiting for some reason. Probably die instantly to the Borg, but who knows. Anything else? That's all I can think of on the attack wing front. On the State of the Federation front, as I kind of disappear into my background of space here. On the attack wing front, there is a Facebook site now for State of the Federation. It's just facebook.com/State of the Federation. All of my I'll post there any kinds of, you know, strategy tips that I kind of pop into my head, or anyone who has questions there, I'll go ahead and answer them. And I'd like to make it into, you know, kind of a nice little community, not as, you know, rules ASCII oriented as, you know, Board Game Geek or the other Star Trek attack wing community, but, you know, just basically a place to brainstorm, you know, ships and fleets and stuff like that. Let's see. Did not realize they're going to be that small space. While still playing, but looking for Klingon Armament. Gotcha. So that was about the Gen Con tables. Yeah, I got that information from Board Game Geek, so I'm not entirely certain how accurate it is. But the poster there is pretty reliable and says they have an in with whoever the WizKids rep is that's running it. So I'm inclined to take it at face value. Let's see. So the Facebook site is up uh, next Tuesday. This is going to go up on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and add this on there too. On Tuesday, which is going to be the, I don't even know what date it is. Tuesday the 22nd, I'll be doing another State of the Federation. Again at 8 o'clock. That is 8 o'clock Eastern. So if anyone wants to tune in, I mean, it's generally going to be kind of, kind of like this show was today. Basically just, going over a couple things, and mostly an AMA. Ask me anything. If you have any questions about fleets, if you're thinking of an idea and need, somewhere else to go off, something else to go off of, if you want a card and it's like, I think this is good, but what am I supposed to do to make the most out of it? Just pretty much that. Ask me anything. The reason there hasn't been a lot of State of the Federation recently is, unfortunately, there is kind of a lot of turnover in Attack Wing. Only about half of the people that started in the last 6 months that I played with at my venues are still going to the venues. But we did have a boost in attendance for OP1, which was 16, which was our highest yet. So that was promising. But, keeping people in the game, I think may be challenging, especially when there was a lot of discouragement about the Borg. And some people are still dealing with that and not sure if they're going to continue with that. So, where I was going with this. The point was that there was a lot of turnover, so I generally like to try running State of the Federation with a co-host. I don't have any co-hosts anymore. People get busy, people try other things and all that, and nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so from now on, State of the Federation might just be me, but if anyone else wants to come on and talk, I'll definitely hook someone up. If you want to state what's going on in your venues, or if you want to have some ideas, I'd love to have someone else to talk to, so I'm not kind of lonely and staring at the chat. Let's see, Schneider75, what list won our OP1? Our OP1 was won by a one-ship cube that was running Picard, 2 cheat deaths, 2 ablative hull armors, and geez, I think that was just about it. I mean, and a flagship. So, basically just a lot of dice, very straightforward. Would have he almost lost in round 2 to a 90-point Interceptor 5. Almost got energy dissipated off the board. It would take, it's about as strong as you can get for a combat Borg, but, still weak against anything specifically designed against it. So he never ended up running up against the projected stasis field Klingon boarding party, which only one person was running. He never ended up running against me when I was running Wayun and Varel. But he did end up running against one of the guys who was running Energy Dissipator. But yeah, the one ship cube is definitely solid, and I think it will continue to be solid. None of our non-Borg people again managed to get to break like top 4. We had mostly one-ship builds. I took 2nd place with my Wayun and Varel build, but that's because we had so many people. We both went 3-0 with 2 total destructions and 1 miss. So we both had 8 fleet points, or 8 battle points, and I lost on fleet points by just like 5 fleet points. Feel dirty playing it, though. Would it make you feel less dirty if you did it with a Zoom ship? Do you run faction cure or faction mixing? Because we love all the options that our faction mixing gives us. Which was the only way that the Interceptor actually made quite a splash, and it was kind of hilarious and fun. I think that build actually took like 4th or 5th place. It was kind of funny. But yeah, the standard any straightforward combat build is pretty much going to do really well in this scenario, I think. Watch out for boarding party and not dissipator, but projected stasis. Watch out for projected stasis and boarding party. But if you're running with the high value captains, it's not too hard to avoid them. I'll definitely suggest adding whatever you're running. I would definitely suggest adding the transwarp drive. that helps you, if the cube does come your way, it does help you get out of range really quick. But, you know, apart from that, have at it. The same things that have been working pretty well one-on-one are working pretty well in OP1 so far. Maybe we'll see something interesting tomorrow, and if we do, I'll bring it up in the next episode. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So, guess that's good for today. Uh, Again, you know, now on Facebook, facebook.com/State of the Federation. I'll be doing most of my updates there, and only occasionally posting when I'm doing new shows to Board Game Geek and the Attack Wing community there. Tuesday, doing an AMA at 8 o'clock Eastern. Come ask me stuff. I like talking to people. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Don't be put off by the evil mirror universe goatee. I promise I'll give you good advice, the best I can think of. And yeah, apart from that, if you're not on it already, or if you're listening to this on archives or on podcast, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/DeltaAngelFire. It's all one word, so you'll find this episode there and all the previous episodes, and just cool stuff all around. But yeah, looks like that's about it for today. Pleasure having some of you guys there, and I hope a lot more of you guys are going to get a chance to listen to this in the archives. Until then, that has been State of the Federation for Friday, July 18th, 2014. And this is your host, Delta Angelfire, signing off. Good luck, guys. Let OP1 be great for you.